If you spend enough time studying survival history, especially in arid regions, you eventually encounter a paradox that unsettles modern assumptions. How did people cook, stay warm, and signal in places where trees were scarce or non-existent? In wooded environments, fire is assumed to be fuel-driven. In deserts, fuel is the constraint that reshapes everything. Early desert cultures, caravan traders, and later military units operating in North Africa and the Middle East faced the same problem. Carrying wood was impractical. Burning brush depleted scarce vegetation and revealed positions through smoke. Conventional campfires were inefficient and dangerous. The answer was not to abandon fire, but to redefine it. Heat, not flame, became the objective. Retention, not brightness, became the goal. This shift led to the development of earth-based fire pits that exploited thermal mass rather than fuel volume. How the woodless desert fire pit was constructed. The core of the system was a shallow pit dug into mineral-rich soil, often clay-heavy or caliche-based ground. These soils absorb and retain heat extremely well. The pit was typically wider than it was deep, allowing heat to spread laterally rather than escape upward. Instead of wood, users relied on alternative combustible inputs. Dried animal dung was the most common. In desert environments, dung from camels, goats or cattle dries quickly and burns cleanly with minimal smoke. In some regions, resinous shrubs or compressed grass mats were added sparingly, not to sustain flame, but to initiate heat. The pit itself did most of the work. Once heated, the surrounding earth radiated warmth for hours, even after combustion ended. Why this pit needed remarkably little fuel to function? The secret lay in insulation and heat capture. Stone or packed earth walls prevented heat loss. Flat stones were often arranged around the pit rim, reflecting warmth inward. In some cases, a partial cover of stone or metal reduced convection loss, turning the pit into a slow-radiating thermal battery. This meant that a short burn could provide long-lasting warmth. Cooking could be done over embers rather than flame. Water could be heated using retained ground heat alone. At night, the pit remained warm enough to prevent hypothermia in cold desert conditions. How 20th century forces rediscovered the technique. During World War II and later desert operations, soldiers found themselves short on fuel in remote locations. Field improvisation led some units to adopt local practices observed among nomadic populations. Accounts describe shallow pits lined with stones, fueled with dung or scavenged waste, producing steady heat with almost no visible flame. These pits were especially valuable at night. They produced little smoke, minimal light, and retained warmth long after extinguishing. From a tactical standpoint, they reduced detection risk while preserving energy. How food and water were prepared using retained heat. Cooking methods adapted to the pit's characteristics. Flatbreads were baked on heated stones. Meat was wrapped and buried near the pit edge to slow cook. Water containers were placed against the warm soil rather than suspended over flame. This indirect approach reduced scorching and conserved fuel. It also allowed simultaneous tasks, as the pit did not require constant attention once heated. How modern survivalists can apply this forgotten knowledge? The principles remain entirely usable today. In arid or semi-arid environments, a shallow pit lined with stone can be heated using minimal combustible material. Dried plant matter, compressed cardboard, or natural waste products can initiate heat. The key is patience rather than intensity. Steps matter. Choose mineral soil, not loose sand. Dig wide rather than deep. Line with stone or compacted earth. Burn briefly and allow the pit to absorb heat. Use the residual warmth rather than chasing flame. This approach is especially valuable during fuel shortages, stealth camping, or emergency scenarios where visibility must be minimized. What this fire pit reveals about desert intelligence. This was not a primitive workaround. It was a sophisticated understanding of thermodynamics expressed without equations. Desert cultures understood that Earth itself could be fuel if treated correctly. They built systems that worked with the environment rather than against it. Modern convenience obscures these lessons, but they remain intact for those willing to learn them. Why this method deserves to be remembered. The lost desert fire pit stands as a reminder that survival is often about restraint rather than abundance. It challenges the assumption that more fuel equals more security. Instead, it teaches that efficiency, concealment and patience are often superior. For history enthusiasts and practical survivalists alike, this knowledge bridges ancient practice and modern necessity. It proves that some of the most effective solutions leave the smallest traces. If this deep dive into forgotten backyard wisdom expanded your understanding of historical survival, subscribe to the channel and share this guide with others who value practical knowledge shaped by real conditions. These lessons endure only when they are passed on.